Okay, so let's start where how you doing? How you doing, and what are you doing? And since last year, in this heat of the battle, where I was this witness of, because I was with you when this happened, when you came out of your spoke out about your history, that you were in this cult, and I happened to be with you in that period, and so. Maybe you can share how you're doing now and what you've been doing the last time, because it was such a sort of roller coaster where you were in at that time, and so just tell us a little bit about how you're doing and how you're feeling and what's going on.
Wow, that's serious stuff to summarize. Gosh, it's been about 9 months, I guess, maybe more, since all that happened last year. And as you know, you and I were together a lot last 2.5 years, and discovering a whole new way of looking at this so-called awakening and the activism stuff going on. And, you know, we share a lot of understandings and seeing things a little differently than most people do, I think. But I think a lot of people are beginning to get. But well, when everything blew up, and you know, obviously I don't want to get into every detail about everything, but I'll be writing about this. I started to write again, and it feels really good. But following when everything blew up, and we were together through that, and you know, the whole amazing experience. It was hard to believe it was happening. I mean, for someone to understand maybe how it was for me, I'm not a pedophile. I've never have been. I'm not that type of person, and nor did I ever endorse it, participate, see it. I never met the leaders of the group. I was in a so-called leadership position, but everybody's just an order follower inside of there. There's no leadership. Everything came down from 2 people. And you followed or else. It was a very tightly controlled environment. And the longer you're in it, the harder it is to get out. Anybody who's been inside of an insular environment like that would understand. If anybody hasn't, it's very easy to judge from the outside. But so anyway, so for me, and having had such a huge awakening in my life and written about it, and for some reason it became quite popular and well known. And then all of a sudden, for everybody to turn and accuse me of heinous crimes, and because I was, you know, one of these misguided kids in the '60s who got sucked into a cult, it startled me, to say the least. It was a shock. It was a shock to a lot of people. Still is. I'm still trying to understand what happened. So anyway, as you know, I gave a couple of videos out, and I wrote a couple articles, and things just went out. I mean, hardly anybody contacted me just to ask me, you know, are you okay? Is any of this true? You know, very few people, and those who did didn't wait for an answer.
The sound is very weak, Zen.
Oh, sorry. Should I sit closer?
Yeah, the sound is, you speak. Okay. Maybe
like this?
Yeah, it's maybe better.
I'm mumbling too.
Yeah.
So anyway, the storm was so horrendous, and there was anybody even who tried to speak up on my behalf or ask questions was getting hounded down. My website was hacked. I was kicked off Facebook. My book was undermined, and I thought, you know, I'm just going to get away from this for a while, because this is insane. And there's no point in even participating in it. So I shut everything down, and ironically, I'd been writing about this before all this happened, that I felt the only answer was to go into the unknown and do serious self-work and really get to the core of what the real issues are here on this planet, and where we'd find the real solutions, because what we're doing wasn't working, and still isn't. It's too little, too late. It's important. People are so-called waking up, but at this rate, this is not going to work.
Now, it's good to mention as well, by the way, that when you came out of this, a few months before already, you spoke to me about this. You shared it with me. So that's maybe good to have that clear, because people, there are some theories that you had to come out with this information, but that was not the case, because you came out with this information to me. I didn't, and you already announced that this is going to be a big thing. Well, I was not so aware of that at that moment, but it's good to mention that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I'd begun to talk about it, and because it was a big deal when you go through something like that. When people come out, you naturally compartmentalize it. You want nothing to do with it because it was extremely traumatic, and to try to explain it to somebody would invariably get a reaction such as what happened to me publicly. So people just clam up, and there are tens of thousands of people out there who you have no idea what they've been through because they don't want to talk about it. Similar to guys who've been in Vietnam or a war, they don't want to talk about what they saw. It brings up all the trauma. So I wasn't hiding it to be deceptive. It was to me at that point in my life, my awakening had been so massive that it was just part of my training, and I actually drew on it a lot. If you read my old articles, I talk about my Christian upbringing and being really. Anyway, I allude to it, but I don't say specifically what it was. But yeah, I was talking about it, and actually, because I was reaching out to other close friends in preparation of talking about it, I was asking for some sort of guidance and some healing, just to be sure. I just wanted to know I was coming from a good place and to kind of prepare myself. And then it got spilled out to the wrong person who went absolutely ballistic. And like I said in a recent article, it's taken totally out of context. I mean, yes, the deeds and things that happened were outrageously horrific, but to say that I was a participant or of that mindset or everybody in the group, which is another reason you don't bring it up, because there's so many people who are absolutely beautiful and innocent, had nothing to do with that shit. But everybody gets incriminated, so they just go quiet, and it's really sad because these people deserve to live a whole life, and but they can't bring it out because people's rush to judgment. And anyway, and I won't defend the group or anything like that. I can just say that the reasons that people got involved were very altruistic. They weren't. Some people thought it was deliberately joining a sacrificial cult or something like that, and that's completely ridiculous. The amount of ignorance that gets thrown around because really it was a fear reaction. Everybody, it drove people batty, and then they'd start to think that I was a con man all along. Then you get serious abandonment issues. That's where people go, "Oh my God, I've been betrayed again, just like by my father or my lover or this and that. Now I find out this guy was a phony," and they rush to that kind of judgment. And what happens is you get a huge old reaction. It's a trigger. And so in the midst of all that, I said, okay, we'll get back to this. They can have it out. I'm not going to sit there, in the town square getting burned every day. And so after we were together for quite a while during that, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. We went to Spain after that when it happened. Then I went back to France after that. But yeah, I was amazed by what happened with you at that moment, by just speaking out the truth, literally, despite what's exactly around it, or what it is in detail. But you spoke about your history, you spoke out about it, and then the reactions were the attacks. What I saw, what you went through, I never witnessed anything like that. The cyber attacks and vicious attacks going on there. So I was quite amazed by this reaction. But it was a good wake-up call for me personally as well, to see how people reacted on this, and including myself. So without going into the deeper collective psychological reasons of people reacting on this issue, it was very helpful and interesting and important to see how especially this truth community reacted on this. And making up their minds and their beliefs, and judging on that without consulting you actually. And then of course you had people who were angry because you didn't respond within a week or within 2 weeks. Well, I saw what you were going through, and it was almost impossible to react on this tsunami of attacks. So that by itself was for me a sort of wake-up call. But when I left you after that period, then my mind went on again, and I went into something. When I did research, or when I went into it, and I thought, hey, I got this sort of unpleasant feelings of, hey, maybe, or whatever mind thinks. So you're going into this thing, especially if you read this stuff which was put on the internet about you by people who didn't even consult you, but felt the need because their followers expected a statement from them, or so I went to that. But then I could consult you. I was in the position that I could contact you, and then we could speak about it in depth. I mean, to understand this history of 27 years in an hour or 2 hours or in an article or one interview, it's impossible. And your mind will go anywhere, especially due to the underlying psychological reasons. But the lack of the need to consult you at that moment by people who are so-called truthers, or healers, or awakened people who don't feel the need to consult you, who at that moment embeds the truth. You're the embodiment of truth, whether it's not okay or whatever you did, you still are the embodiment of truth in that sense. But the lack of the need to consult you by these people and then just make up their minds and their judgments on that was quite astonishing, really. But so in that sense was for me a very learning experience. But
yeah, it's huge.
How are these attacks still going on at this moment, or is it calming down? Or
well, just to add one thing, like you said, the truth community, or the truth and research community, and the only research was each other's articles, asserting all kinds of insane things. I mean, insane stuff was going around, and still is. I think I don't track it. I don't read their articles anyway. But the so-called research community. I mean, if there was something on me, believe me, not only would it have come out, I would never stuck my head out in public ever. I mean, if I was that kind of a creep and tried to cover up being a slime bag underneath or something like that, it's like anybody who knows me know I'm as about up front and in your face who I am as anybody you'll ever meet. And but in spite of that, which is interesting what you said, when people get hit by doubts, I mean, doubt, and this kind of, because it was a spiritual attack, and bam, when you're hit with that, you wonder, and no one's ever going to know the full-on truth except me, because you have to live my whole life to know what I did, whether I was guilty of some heinous crime like that. Because people will not believe me. There's always going to be room for doubt until something satisfies. And this is when it goes to the courts and laws, as if that's going to ever solve anything, or something like this Kuwaiti girl and the incubator babies will come up. Somebody makes something up. Oh, we got it. Now we got it. It's very strange playing field, especially when you don't go by your personal knowledge. That's why people who know me, who knew me and got to know me, the fact that it even rocked them, and I saw it hit you, I saw it hit Ole, and so we talked it out, and then he would be okay, and then he'd come back a few days later, and it's like, I'm just having this, but he'd be honest about it and say, and I'd say, we'd walk through it and everything, because it wasn't the question. I can't prove anything, but the nature of the attack is, I mean, you see this in the mainstream all the time. All you have to do is accuse somebody, and they're screwed for life, even if they get off, kind of a thing. Anyway, the nature of that whole thing, the research community and that so-called, I mean, the stuff people were reading that was coming out, these were articles, there was a lot of truth in them. There was horrendous things, and I don't have any, I cannot defend my life in that group. I was a stupid idiot. I don't like who I was or who I became. And the degree of ignorance that went on, I had no idea. I didn't even know what the word hierarchy meant. But when I popped out of that whole thing, I saw that that was a microcosm of this whole matrix. And I got a real boom, intense experience in it. It taught me a hell of a lot. But it was horrendous. And the amount of mind control, the amount of coercion. When you mix the spiritual in with it, and people's love of God, which is where I came from. I was a very sincere Christian, hated church, never believed in religion. I was not, I came out of a mystic environment after I'd woken up in college and was searching very seriously. And there was all kinds of cults at the time. I mean, people contacted me during this and thanked me for coming out. This is before I got completely nuked, but they thanked me for coming out about it. They said they've been living in horrendous secrecy all their life or pain. People who lost loved ones in Waco, they lost friends and children in Waco contacted me. I mean, this was busting me up. And people who lost loved ones in Jonestown. I mean, we're talking serious shit. And people who were in Mormon churches for years, and people who got abused in Hare Krishna. Even people who used to be in the Children of God, they said, thanks, it's brave of you to come out. None of us will, which was really nice. But look at the reaction. Instead of it being, you pointed this out. You said, man, people could have learned so much if they just said, wow, what happened, Zen? And, can you explain? And, what did you learn,
Well,
it could have been a real learning.
That's interesting why these two aspects, actually, why people reacted so viciously and not consulting you or doing everything to try and get in contact with you and to establish this contact and to consult you on what happened there, especially people who were personally in contact with you and did traveling or whatever. But this, I think, that's also because most of us are living in a cult ourselves. Everybody who works in a corporation, everybody who works for the education, in the military, in health, in all these aspects are structures. They build like a cult. So most of us are living in a cult, and a cult is of course based on fear. So if somebody speaks out on this, then these reactions, the deeper psychological reasons, is very interesting. And also the need to punish somebody, that people were putting things on the internet, so-called awake people, and said, well, we have to wait before all the evidence is there, and then we can decide, and then we can punish the guy or whatever. This need for punishment to other people. It is what's keeping us from evolving, actually, from growing. This ego-based authority thinking that we can judge whatever another guy is doing and punish the other person. I mean, if there would be evidence, or I would be wrong in my research, my contact, my gathering of information, what, where, who, and all these questions, and then come to my conclusions. If I was wrong, well, then I was wrong. Then I'm not going to punish you because of that, of course. But this whole mindset at that moment.
Yeah, and well, it showed. I mean, I wrote an article years ago called "All the World's a Cult." Obviously, I've got some pretty serious experience. Even now, I can smell cult stuff a mile away. I know the symptoms of it, and we've talked about that a lot. And it's all over the place. It's rife in the alternative community. Anything that pledges to hierarchy, looks for leadership, externalizing all this stuff. It's so easily controlled, and you can, the matrix is a cult, the government's a cult, the whole thing. But we don't want to see ourselves in that. Oh, I pay taxes. I'm not killing anybody in Syria, but I pay my taxes. Well, where do you draw the line? You know, as far as guilt, and that's another thing that drove me nuts. It's like, whatever, going after anybody. You know, the whole idea of awakening is you were asleep once. I was sound asleep and zombified. And well, like I was saying, when you're religious and heart, very intense heart, which I've all my life, I've been a truth seeker and wanted to help change the world. That's one of the people stuck with that, and I can't escape it. It led me to this. And when I got in, everything was sort of moving along. It was complete dedication, complete everything. I said, okay, outside the church, it was really putting the words of Jesus into action, like few have ever dared. And I caught my imagination, it caught my attention, and beautiful people I met who also felt the same. And this is how a cult gets started. Because in time, the hierarchy will gain its strength, and it doesn't have to have CIA infiltration for freaking pedophilia to appear. It happens in every damn organization. And I would venture to say, not to defend the group, I'll bet you there was a hell of a lot less in that group than there is in any neighborhood or any fucking corporation or bank or anything. Yeah, in today's world, you know, as horrible as it was, especially in the so-called name of God and the screwed up teachings of David Berg. He just went completely off the rails. And as people fell away, they fell away, they fell away. It took me a while to get out. I had to know I wasn't leaving God's will for my life. And if you don't know what kind of a trap that is, you don't know what mind control is. when you've been, I had myself steeped in the Bible, and you know, fully dedicated, and I had to unravel all that.
Sounds
to
bad.
Not leave what I'd given my life. Whoops, sorry. It was completely outside the system. We didn't have bank accounts, anything. It's just, you know, as revolutionaries as any hippie would want in its inception. But you know, it became paranoid. It became all you know. There's books that could be written. Actually, books have been written. If someone wants to hear about what the group was like, there's books out there. You can find all kinds of information from people who were inside. And I haven't read them all. I don't like being reminded of it, but some really insightful stuff, I'm sure. But the stuff that people got into on the internet, these were articles and stuff. They were put out by the mass media during really intense times of what we considered persecution. But because it was controversial out the wazoo from day one. We were anti-Zionist, anti-church, totally revolutionary. And, you know, this is before the Jesus people. The Jesus people came along and put out this sort of weak, willy-nilly churchified version, and they grew their hair long and played rock music in the church and that kind of stuff, which was ludicrous. But we were ludicrous too, but way, way beyond anything. So, and other things went off the rails. I'm not going to defend the group. It was some really weird stuff. I'm just explaining, when you're in something like that, it is goddamn hard to get out without feeling like you're failing God, if that's your commitment. And I had to unravel that and be satisfied, and also give a shot at bringing back what I thought was what was good about it and get it off the fucking wrong track. And I tried a bunch of stuff, obviously didn't do enough. And when I saw this is hopeless and I got the thing unraveled, I found some really good books. One of which, for anybody listening who's this kind of spiritual mind control, is called The Subtle Power of Spiritual Abuse. Very good book. It's written for Christian church members who get abused by pastors using the cudgel of God's will. This is God's will for you, which is how priests get away with their pedophilia and the whole thing. It's the ultimate cudgel, as far as I'm concerned. That kind of.
So how long did it take for you to realize that things were going in a bad way in this children?
Well, it started to surface early, but it would readjust itself. Like there was, because all these young people were being put in little positions of leadership, there were things called little centers growing up around the world, just called homes or colonies, where there'd be a family or two or three living together. There were even no kids yet. This is way back. We were in like early 20s. And right after a few years, there was already appearing, because he built this hierarchical structure, and there was abuse taking place of not sexual abuse, but of finances and power. Like people would be in charge of a little home, be called a shepherd, and most were okay. It was just sort of an organizational thing. But then because there was such absolute control, 24/7, man, it brought out the worst in a lot of people. So he abolished the whole structure only a few years into it, and actually sent everybody home, because the press was already pounding on the children of God. It was a anathema to the world from the get-go. But everybody went home and all that. But because there was the allure of the commitment, some people, the press was saying everybody was prisoners. So Berg just sent everybody home. Just show them you're not a prisoner. You can go home. Stay home if you want to. Just to defy that, because they had the picture, which is easy because this was an insular organization. So from the outside, everybody can imagine all hell breaking loose. Well, all hell did eventually break loose, and it had horrendous aspects to it. But anyway, it's very hard to describe. Shit. But
so how was
that surfaced early, and then repeatedly there were things, and then the teachings. Then he got into the sexual liberation stuff, and that really got people like, man, because it ultimately was framed as a test of commitment and how free are you. And this was a bunch of ex-hippies, and sexual freedom wasn't that big a deal. But in this context, and in using scripture, so that blew a lot of people away, and a lot of people went through it. I survived through it, and that was part of the teaching. So it just got stranger and stranger, and so by that time, I was already,
when it got stranger and stranger, were you aware of that becoming stranger?
Yeah, I was married, and my kids were little by then, and we started going, man, this is weird. This is just weird. But you sort of you have this thing, because there's a thing in the Bible called a backslider. It's somebody who leaves God's will. That's the ultimate curse. You're a backslider. So you have this challenge to kind of make it through, and just you sort of hope, and you sort of avoid the controversial stuff, because you're on your own somewhere, and you have your own little thing, so you don't have to get into everything that's coming out. So we would talk about this, and for a long time, that's where, I'm ashamed of myself for being such a wuss that I didn't just go, this is ridiculous, and get out. But I was so in this deep conviction, and it has a lot to do with my upbringing and things like codependency and stuff. But it's easy. It's easy when you're in something like this, and it's reinforced over and over and over. And then for years, you sort of, the next thing that comes along, you just sort of, okay, and you suffer through it, because the option of leaving has been conditioned in you as being like going to hell. It's like, you've got to stick it out, or you're going to go to hell. It's like a soldier. You better go to battle, or I'm going to fucking shoot you. Or you get court-martialed, and it's going to be in the newspapers, or you're funneled into these things. So, and I was, sorry?
It's fear-based.
Yeah, it's horrible. And it's, but everybody experiences it to some degree, but I'm not going to, and when I say that, it's not to defend myself. I just went through one of the most intense type of things you could imagine. Like many ex-military, they come out and they go, holy shit. And they're guilty of some pretty horrendous things. But when they come out and say, man, that was wrong, and I see it now, you don't see people, yeah, but you did this. The community never does that. And in my case, they said, "Oh man, you're not getting off the hook. We're going after you." and they had the ultimate thing, because pedophilia is like that's the demon of the day, and it rightfully so. It's horrific. But the fact that it turned, and we've talked about this, right? I don't know how long, and it really so helped, man, being with you, because we could talk it out, and these comments were still coming in, the attacks and strange stuff, and we could just laugh at it. It's like the insanity of it. It was off the charts. Even some of these, like you're saying, these big wigs on the alternative community coming out with pronouncements. Well, this is, you analyze the whole thing, and we hear people, this is what's going on. It's like, without contacting me, it's like, really?
That's for me was really very significant, and for what's the situation we are in as a collective now. That truth has nothing to do with how we think about things or our beliefs, or if we are agree with it or not. Truth is simply that which is. But especially from these people, because I organized these conferences, so I saw these people who are supposedly awake, didn't feel the need to consult with you. And I said, well, why don't you contact Zen? Did you contact Zen already? No, I maybe should do that. Yeah, well, do it, try to do it. So, and if they then come with an argument, well, he he didn't respond to me. Well, if you know, he has a good reason not to respond in the first period, because he couldn't really. It was completely ridiculous, the amounts of attacks. But after that, I continued with people say, did you contact Zen already? You are so-called truther. Well, you have the need for finding the truth. Well, there is your truth. You have to contact him then if you want to know the truth. Well, yeah. And nobody did that, actually. But still continuing on the internet, speaking on the internet about it, and doing, giving messages or statements on the internet for their followers or for their for groups or articles, because that was expected by their followers or by their, but they didn't feel the need to continue and try to contact you. Well, then you try to work harder to get in contact with you in order to get the truth, at least information from you directly, whether it is whatever truth it is. But you need to have consulted you in this case. You're still alive, so you should consult you if you want to know the truth. At least come closer to the truth. But But people were ballistic. People who organized conferences themselves, they took them off the websites where you were also on immediately, because they were all published with together with you, so-called fellow truth warriors. But well, here's a truth warrior. He's in the line of fire. He's being killed. I think you should at least wait a little bit and then try to get in contact with him. How is he doing? Or try to get information, or
maybe he needs help.
But I was amazed by it. But at the same time, it was a confirmation what I saw during these conferences, especially after that. The attacks I receive as well, by the way, on another level from especially New Age community. Which is another religion now by itself. But that must be quite a deception for you, by the way, if you have now this knowledge of CIA, MK Ultra, involved in the whole Woodstock movement, the hippie movement, and what came after that, and the New Age movement, and the truth communities. I mean, these are spin-offs of the same intelligence, New Age.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of... I mean, I would not trade this experience for anything. I feel honored. I feel privileged to have been, like I tell people, you imagine a golf driver hitting a golf ball at 8,000 miles. I am so thankful, and because it was the next level of awakening that I was craving without knowing it. You know how you feel that? Like, we were talking about this all the time. Like I tell people all the time, Willem, that conversation we had on the beach with a bunch of, activist friends. And you brought up that question that we've been talking about. Are you willing to let it all go? And as you remember, certain personalities came back very strong, saying, "No, I have got to do it. If my following this, you know, this is what drives me." And but missing the point about letting it go, like. I mean, I thought that was a consciousness fundamental. You've got to let go. Like, so the reaction, I don't know. You know, you and I have been on the same page for some time, but that was a shocker. I was going to say about knowing the truth. Yeah, only I know the truth, because there's no way anybody could pull out a camera that videoed my whole life and look for when I did some horrible thing. You know, and I'm not saying I've been the world's coolest guy, or I was a complete jerk and asleep as could be and sucked in, and obviously went along with a whole lot of shit I shouldn't have. But I'm trying to identify the dynamics, not to defend myself, just to explain. But that's good. So no one can ever be satisfied. They'll always have that doubt. But the weird thing is that you're talking about these people that contacted me, or even, I mean, like you said, people, I was taken off of you know, conference things, websites who had my archives, major websites, had all my archives, just dumped everything, didn't even send me an email, and didn't say a word, just dumped everything, all over the place. To this day, major sites that used to publish my stuff, I've sent them some of the new stuff, and they go, we love you, Zen, we didn't go for all that stuff, but we can't put that stuff out because, we're working on our readership, and we can't handle all the comments, and, so, and it frustrated me, but then I thought, you know what, I'm safely on the outside, enjoy it, because I'm on the outside of so-called outsiders. But as we talked about, the so-called truth communities, we've got serious issues. And so the problem is what people do is they go, oh, I'm alternative now. I'm in the alternative community. And it's okay. These are, although there's some stuff in here, but I can sort of trust this group of information. That's cult mentality, because you're letting go of your centered, true self and source of all things and identifying with a group. That's how the New Age community works. I mean, they don't see themselves as a community, but it's sort of an energetic formation that happens, and people give themselves to it. They start all singing the same and using the language, and that's how they meet and get to know each other. And this is rife through the world, and always has been. It's because it's evidence, like you were saying, of lack of being centered in truth and real reality. There is such a thing, and it doesn't care what we think about it. And it's ours to be in touch with that and live according to it, and realize, it's a fight, and not take ourselves too seriously and all that kind of stuff. But the weirdest thing, Willem, was, as you well know, that during and after this all happened, people I'd been very close to, activists, not only didn't contact me, didn't drop a note and say, how you doing? Or, you okay? Or, do you need anything? Or, I mean, there's a handful. You and Ole, and I was shocked. That shocked me even more, because they knew me. They know me. But when you hear that there's some secret thing, like you said, it's fear grabs people, and that's the so-called awake community is loaded with fear. It's loaded with reactivity, and it's not to condemn everybody, but it's a wake-up call. Like, hey, are we really on the right track here? And that's like we've been talking about artificial intelligence, and it's a synthetic awakening if it's not a real awakening. It's synthetic, and it'll have all the trappings and say the right words and publish the right stuff. But where is it going? What is it contributing to? These are things that we have to get really, really away from everything and get real deeply out of the way in order for us to be able to see some of these things clearly. And most don't like it, because it means giving everything up. It means giving up your identity, giving up this. That's why for me, this whole experience was freaking awesome. It was awesome. People say awesome. It was just amazing, because it did what I probably wouldn't have done for myself. I was getting, you know, I was getting affected by it. It was starting to, I don't know. And the universe was amazing. And it was, I was hungry for it. I can't say I'm a, man, I take no credit for anything. I'll tell you that. But when you're this 9 months, I was as alone as you could be. I mean, you remember I even had a box of stuff sent to me. The box got lost, but you know, I only had my little carry-on. I only had my little carry-on bag of stuff, and I was happy. The silence that it gave me, and I've been writing about this, is talk about the space, the profound silence, and call it the Tao or whatever. And I've been reading a lot, and you know, all kinds of things during this time, of course. But the respect for the silence, the respect for what really is, you know, like that deep flowing river of real reality, has so profoundly affected my life. I mean, I didn't know if I'd ever write again or not. It didn't matter. It was sort of, that's not my identity. But then on the same token, we all have a creative force that moves in us. And I've been reading a lot about this whole subject, because we all have a choice what direction. You can just go off and be a monk if you want. You can jump into whatever sorts of activities and activism, but we have to move with where our creative spirit works. And so I have a gift with words, so I started writing some poetry and putting things down. I've begun a book.
So you're gonna write a part 2 book?
Yeah, you are not the awakening.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, my second book is called The Brutal Awakening so far.
Yeah.
Because if you're really awakening, it ain't no piece of cake, baby. It's constant demolition derby.
It is, yeah. But that's with the whole truth movement, or whatever you want to call it, this awakening. But people are sort of trapped in certain kinds of information, because there's a really lack of the why question, the causality of it. Why are we doing this? What am I looking for, and what I'm going to do with it? Because there's a lot of information. This whole stream of information is confusing. It's more confusing than that it's helping us. That it's a sort of blanket over the real truth, which is out there as well. But people dive into information. For instance, with geoengineering, there are now, I think, maybe 100 million people are completely aware of geoengineering and the devastating effect it has on the environment. Well, why are not then 20 million of these people stop posting things or stop doing activists, but come together and occupy with 20 million or 10 million, you occupy the Pentagon, for instance, or whatever. That's more easy. But continuing with this information, more photos. I mean, I understand, of course.
Yeah.
It's very attractive to make pictures of beautiful chemtrail skies. Yeah. But if we come together on this, and then with this massive amounts of people, and then just you can occupy a city.
Yeah, I mean, that's what. I mean, I was writing about that for quite a while, and then I'm not the only one, but the amounts of information, or that one, what do I call it? Are you awake or just informed? Amounts of information are important, or real knowledge is important, as you always point out, and you know, functional knowledge. But as far as the courses of action, we're not seeing a whole lot happening, and which led me to the conclusion that we're not coming from an authentic place. We've got to get to that place, then we'll know what to do. And it's and really, I mean, philosophically, esoterically, when we get to that place, the ego has to go, or, you know, not have predominance, and the mind's got to take way back seat. Well, then you realize this whole thing is a projection of unrealized people. this whole thing, the subservience to it, the creation of it. This is all coming from ego-based, easily manipulated from whatever influences, issues and problems and stories that people tell each other that are all lies interwoven into this thing. Well, if everybody shut their story off and got to the truth and reality and let it go, the thing would just disappear. Now that's why, that's also why I wrote about the awakenings. That everybody really did wake up. This, their course of action would change. They would care for people in the street. They would share instead of hoard. Huge dynamics would change, but it doesn't happen like that. And just awareness itself isn't going to do it unless our lives drastically change. And one really changed life has a massive effect because it affects so many others. We talked about a lot.
Sounds good, but
this kind of stuff. But where do we really find our? Oh, sorry. There it goes. Okay, it says my connection is unstable.
Yeah, it is.
It's probably me. No, I mean me. I'm unstable. No, but I don't know.
No, it's true. Because you would see a dramatic change in action of people, massive amounts of people who wouldn't bring their children to school anymore, or vaccinate their children, or go to work, to their immoral jobs, or all these things. You would see these kinds of stuff happening, but you don't see that. So, because we are still operating from fear. I mean, if 80% now in France, how many people are voting on a collective level? I mean, it's a collective experience, a collective creation. We all co-create this experience, whether we see each other or not in the five senses, three-dimensional realm, but we're co-creating it. And the far majority is still operating from fear. And that will result in more chaos, more tyranny, more of the same. 80% of the people voting now. And now what you also see is that in Holland, for instance, people are turning them to this royal family as well. They turn themselves more to the politicians, to the political arena, and even more because there's a charming offensive done by the royal family as well to get these people more turned to them. And then they justify it with, oh, they're so charming, and oh, they're doing this for good intentions, and all these kinds of moral justifications for something which is completely immoral. But it's interesting to see that actually, because Operation Gladio is still very active, and the goal of Operation Gladio is to have the people, force them to turn them to the state. And that's exactly what's happening now on a massive scale. And it's based on fear. This strategy of tension, which is completely visible happening, and people attack each other. I'm being attacked that I put something up about royal family, what they are, and where they
took down the Facebook page. They took down your Facebook page.
Yeah, and people attack me for that. So people are now even more turning them to this elitist royal family of psychopaths, which are their masters, and consider themselves superior because of their genes and their intellect. They have this the authority to rule over us, and people accept it for all kinds of reasons. They say, well, it's also all this and that. They all find different kind of reasons to justify this totally immoral source of evil on this world, by any justification, by saying, well, no, he's not so bad, or he's not now, this, blah, blah, all kinds of moral justifications, moral relativism.
They convince themselves of what they want to believe. That's exactly. All people, they believe what they want to believe, and if it's a little hard to believe, they'll convince themselves. They'll look for evidence to I mean, this whole thing with identity politics and all the conflict, this we saw coming for a long time.
The sound is very bad.
Those who pulled out. Oh, sorry. this division's been coming a long time. And so people who are attached, unawake, the fear gets stronger and stronger, like you're saying, and they cling on to things for identity, whether it's the royal family or a political party, or even, even inside the alternative community. You'll see the same dynamics everywhere, where people are sort of grouping up, and there's the alternative community is more viscous, I guess. It doesn't clam up as easy as, obviously, people who are really totally asleep. But the inclination is it comes from here. But this identity stuff is you can it's you seeking something to attach to. The thing that's attaching, like that famous quote, it's not the thought that matters. It's what reaches out and makes it yours. That's the real underlying thing. I mean, this kind of understanding, sort of a deeper philosophical outlook of life, was taught to children in previous civilizations. When things were really, and they were allowed to, they were encouraged to create and learn on their own, for their own. Today, people have, I mean, honestly, they're so dumbed down, you wonder how much humanity's left, because they can't see anything, and they just react. And that's why, getting back to what happened to me, I thought, here too, how naive was I? Look at this reaction, without research, without investigation. All you have to do is, like somebody walked up to me and said, "Hey, I'm so-and-so," which nobody has, even though people have recognized me in a lot of places. They've been very cordial, but and I've met wonderful people, but they imagine somebody saying that. Say, "Well, do you believe everything you read?" People do that. We accuse the mainstream sheeple of doing that, but look what happened in the so-called alternative world. They did the same thing. It just had to come from a certain source. Oh, this person said it, and then the high priests, the gatekeepers come and they say, "Yes, this is what happened, and this is where Zen's at, and we understand it all. It's okay, people. He's gone now. We've taken care of that. He's gone. We need this, that, terrible, this kind of thing." And it's like, is this? But for me, I was completely naive. I assumed that. I had a great talk about this yesterday with a friend here. But I assumed other people had the same urge and feeling and lust for truth and some level as I did. And that's why when I wrote, I was sort of addressing what I sensed in people. And it turns out a lot of people responded, but I wasn't writing for the response. I was writing because of a desire to reach out. But it turns out, like one of the ways to see the great division in people is between the service to self and service to others. And a lot of people who are service to self, they're really suckers, but they're in the so-called truth. They cover themselves well. They look like they're in service to others, but they're doing it for a whole different motive. And you don't find that out. You can't see it right off the bat. You don't find out till afterwards, when they drop you like a rock or attack you or say goodbye. I got sucked enough energy off of you. Ciao. It's a brutal reality to wake up to. But that's why I love the teachings of Don Juan, because he talks about when you become a person of knowledge, you will see the world different. You will handle it much more vigilantly. That not all is as it seems. Not all out there are actually humans to some degree or another. You have to learn how to operate, not fearfully or by any means, but this is we've been dropped into a field of war, and as you wake up to it and become more aware of it, it's amazing, and we all we see it this way, but the levels of understanding remain to be fully plumbed. We have so much to learn.
Oh, that's a good thing that you mentioned about the teachings of Don Juan Matus. that this different reality to continuously, that's a good thing to really experience different realities all continuously, that you continuously, this ongoing process of dying, which is literally, and the willingness to go there, to really let this on a deep level, everything, to let everything go, to experience our realities, which you have to do in life. That's of course life. If you're going to die, we're all going to die one day, but some of us are continuously dying the whole time. But that's with this truth community, it's this lack of this willingness of changing the reality, instead of continuously exposing that what already happened, or that what already manifested. So that what became truth, which what is the use for it, instead of going to the causality, to the why questions, which have to do with, on a personal level, these things. And that's, of course, difficult for people to go, or refuse to go there, to really let it go, in order to experience another reality. So there won't be change if you're not willing to let it go, and to really let it go. But yeah, in that sense, Don Juan Matos is a beautiful a tool for that, to get the words out of this process.
And that willingness, I know for me, I just assumed, very naively, everybody, like, we're all going to do this, right? We all want to go all the way, right? I'm going to do it with or without you, but right? Isn't this? I assumed that was what was inside of people, but it wasn't. I remember when I left university, and I'd had my wake up there, my first one, and I was off to the West Coast. I said, fuck, I didn't get my degree. I just walked out, even though I went through 4 years. There's another cult I should have left earlier. But talk about a cult, man. But I went to the West Coast. I said, come on, we're going to do this, right? This is we all get it, right? We've shared these amazing things. We're against the military industrial complex. We need to find a new way to live, a new society for this world. This is fucked up. We were raised fucked up. Let's go.
Yeah.
I got in my VW bus by myself, stuck my harmonica, and drove with my elbows to California, and alone. And eventually, it was probably, I don't know how many, but after a while, looking around, I was in Berkeley and all, I got totally disillusioned, because it was the hippie culture at the time was who's the coolest and how you dressed, and on the shallow surface, and it was so self-conscious. Everybody was, I was like, oh no, this is really not where it's at. So I was heading off for Big Sur. I was just going to go find one of those geodesic domes and blow my, take psilocybin until I finally got it, or something like that. And on the way, I met a guy. It ended up where I met the Children of God. And I was cult bait right out of the gate there. There was a lot of bait in those days. People that were searching. So CIA had a field day. Cults had a field day. As you know, we got gobbled up on purpose. But what was I going to say? Oh, but anyway, it was alone, and here I am alone again. And, I assumed in the so-called awakened community there, and I was not just dropped like a rock. I was burned at the stake within 2 days of some of these articles. I was like, wow, that was weird, So I took off, and I was very alone again. And but man, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's the path, and I'm gonna stay on it. I don't give a fuck what happens. I made this resolution when I was 18 years old, and I'm sticking to it. I'm heading. I'm in this for the whole enchilada, but there aren't that many of us. I'm finding out.
Well, it's very entertaining to watch it, Zen.
Yeah, there's like a guy here. He says, "Man, not you." And I go, "How am I supposed to take that?" No, he goes, "Because my life story is full of abrupt changes and huge upheavals. But I mean, it's just the way it is. And I'm thankful. I'm very thankful. But one of the most beautiful things is, you know, a brotherhood with you and Ole and a few others that what's come through this. And by the way, I'm in touch with quite a few people who've been very encouraging on and off, just said a few things here and there, and just they got it. And they've been really supportive, helpful, encouraging times when I was really feeling alone. And but a lot of the people who contacted me right out of the gate, I mean, if I can dig out those emails one day, but from people I've never met, never heard of, they watched it, but they got it right off the bat. And they, without an exception, all of them had been through serious stuff in their life and done serious self-work as a result, whether a tragedy, in some kind of a cult or religion or something, the military, or, you know, serious health issues, but they'd gone through something and could see life clearly, and they saw what was happening. They didn't need to be convinced by me of where I was at. They just saw this is wrong. It doesn't matter what happened. This is really wrong. Something's wrong here. And I know a lot of people who got off out of the alternative community too. When they watched that happen, they said, "Oh man," which I was saying before that. And we talked about that all the time. Get off the information merry-go-round. This is dangerous. There's AI, there's psyops, there's filth, there's viruses. And so anyway, there's a lot of wonderful people who get that, but almost, I mean, everyone that contacted me, I mean, you remember, I read a lot of them to you when we were together, when they came in. It's just some amazing, amazing people. But without it, you have to go through it to know. That's all I can say. And many times, like you said, it is a continual process. Bring it on. You know, like sometimes I get.
It's like, I mean, I was in this cult in in a lot of cults actually. But the most violent one was in the military. I was in the special forces cult, and there. But I was not aware of that. This was a cult structure at that moment. So I could. I mean, I luckily I wasn't sent out to kill people, but I know people who went, and it's you cannot judge that. It's very difficult to understand, but it's very useful. So I think it was really like a missed chance in a way that people didn't consult you and did more effort to consult you after that, and then reflect on it, because then we can learn from these kinds of things and learn from this from your experiences and knowledge, and wake us up that we all live in cults, despite what happened there. Of course, that's important, and we, like you say, we will never know exactly. You will carry that with you. But if I was wrong in my judgment in my analyze, my processing, my logic, my gathering of knowledge, my hours of talks with you, and the research I did, and if I was wrong, appear to be wrong, then I will then deal with that with me, not then attacking you or whatever. I always carry the right for self-defense. We all have, but to attack other people afterwards because we think we have the authority. But I think it's a missed chance of that. But you see, humanity goes over and over and over the same kind of thing. That's why I'm so amazed to see, but also at the same time not amazed, surprised at all, to see more and more people turning to the state, with continuing voting, for instance, continuing bringing children to school, continuing with doing the same thing. So in that sense, yeah, it is not surprising, but
yeah, I mean, for me, it was very sad to. At the same time, it was a heartbreak, because I put my all into what I was doing, and a genuine, you know, friendships and with commenters and a lot of people that we'd sort of grown up through the website with me, and many of whom just turned like on a dime, and I was, and even the people who attacked me, it's really sad, because you've got some serious misdirection going on. You know, even if they had some kind of, you know, because anybody can say, well, you're guilt by association, because fine, you can think that way, but to go off like that and then spread it with venom and vitriol, and
that was amazing,
with a desire to destroy. That's the thing. It was whatever this was wanted to destroy me, and you know.
Well, it's more, I think it's more self-righteousness. Even
totally
aware what the consequences are. When I wrote people about this very irresponsible way of communicating by putting things on the internet, whether it's videos or statements or articles, I never got a response. Maybe, yeah, there's something there, and maybe I did something different, or no, nothing at all. So there's this very calcification of this ego identification, or this self-righteousness, that thinking you have the authority to judge somebody and make up your own truth, that you are capable of making up the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Based on what?
Beliefs.
Based on what? Yeah, exactly. I remember somebody, I think you're referring to, you wrote an amazing letter to him, and just saying, well, you know, exactly that, you know, you're a beautifully humble spirit. You said, well, I know what a mess I am. I'm still trying to figure me out.
Yeah.
I know I'm in no place to judge somebody else. So maybe, you know, like you said, you were kind of addressing the irresponsibility of it. And he wrote you back and said, who are you? Who are you? And I just got an email from a girl who told me that they were selling babies to the elite in so and so place. You know, he was going to trust this, because people were writing him, telling him all kinds of stories, and he was just eating it up. And like you sent him the only sane thing he probably got is, who are you?
Yeah.
Because his focus had become gather information that's going to support this self-righteous platform, and that's human nature. That's what off-course egos gone wild do. And but they don't know they're doing it. They think they're right because they've got it all packaged. We've all done that. That's what ego and mind do together. They're a great team. But I mean, the stories. No, babies were not sold to anybody, and there was, you know, baby stuff wasn't even involved in all this. But there was, I remember another big conspiracy website put up something that, well, we have information that Zen Gardner is a very high level, fancy word, Illuminati psyop plant that, you know, these are very, very high up, very secret, very, you know, very, very powerful. and she put this up on the front page of her very popular website. I'm going, seriously, you know, I mean, I don't know if anybody can put themselves in my shoes. I'm just a guy. I'm just a seeking, sincere guy, and this happens to you. And I'm watching this movie unfold. Like, you know, thankfully I got to be with you and Ole, and but you watching this happen. And I remember we had some good laughs. We had a lot of cries. Oh, I sure did. And but the overall insanity of it, there was every day there was some new allegation. It was just people were feasting on it.
No.
Well, okay, let's back off, people. If we're feasting, is this some sort of cannibalism going on? You know, are things perhaps a little off course? Has anybody noticed the spirit of this whole thing? You know, oh yeah, but we got him. He's over there, that fried thing, that's him. We got him. We know all this, and this. That's why I pulled out. That's why I said, okay, this is nuts. And I'm not going to sit here on the witness stand, you know, being accused of something. I'm not going to play your little courtroom game. I know there's nothing to even talk about here. Never mind get called out and tried and convicted and then strung up the same day, you know. Well, I wasn't even tried, actually. I was strung up. But anyway, remarkable to behold. And what had happened in my life is that this is part of the movie.
Yeah.
I felt like I was watching the whole thing. Still am.
Okay, Zen, let's wrap it up here, this talk.
Okay, I hope I didn't ramble too long. This is the first time I've talked about this with the possibility of it getting published. I mean, a lot of people are have been asking for stuff and interviews and stuff, and I said no. I'm just waiting. I've just been waiting. I don't know. I just didn't feel. I wasn't even sure I was ever going to do anything again. Not because I was hiding. I'm not hiding from anything. I'm on an amazing journey to places I've never been before, internally and in understanding and awareness. And it's humbling. It's a very humbling experience. You know, as we know, the more we know, the more we know we don't know. But you know, studying some of the great Eastern teachers and teachings of Don Juan and a few other things, it adds to that. It makes that alternate reality more real all the time. But not that we don't. We just have to be aware of it, learn how to operate, not just here in this 3D, but you know, draw on deeper and more empowering influences. If we're gonna, well, it's just part of our journey. But if we really have a drive in us to see what really needs to be done here, we need to be like Don Juan says, men of knowledge, and have eyes that see. We need to see. And until then, we're going to make unconscious decisions and do unconscious things.
Well, maybe so we might go more into the unknown.
What's that?
So we go a little bit more into the unknown.
Or so we think is the unknown.
Okay, well, thanks, Zen, and let's speak soon, and then we can talk more about other things.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's. I like it when we extrapolate and apply it to things that are going on around us, because I think
yeah, exactly.
That's really important to break that down. It's empowering, and it takes away the confusion, and it dissipates the fear. You know, because I'm not afraid, you're not afraid, but a lot of people are, and don't know it. They don't know they're afraid. They're operating, you know, scarcity, survival, you know, defensiveness. They don't realize they are, because they assume that's the climate they're in. But they don't have to be living in that climate. They understand. It's like a goldfish, and somebody's heating up the water all the time. All the goldfish are going to think it's okay because everybody's feeling the same thing. No, somebody's boiling the water. So you got to hop out and find real water. So that's the thing. People go by consensus reality, and that's the definition of insanity. But again, that's what happened in the alternative community. It went to consensus reality. Everybody was believing it. Look, so-and-so said this, and oh, look at the reaction over here, and oh my God. And so it just became reality. And here's the so-called awake community. Are you kidding me? Hey guys, you were just hoodwinked. You don't get it, do you?
Yes.
Anyway.
Okay, let's see. I stopped the recording here.